Welcome to Public Forum, a community outreach program produced at North Idaho College on the shores of Lake Coeur d'Alene. Featuring guests from around the globe addressing a wide variety of subjects, Public Forum serves to educate and enlighten. Please join host and moderator, political scientist Tony Stewart, in welcoming today's guest.
I welcome you to part two of a two-week series dealing with professional photography, and we're so fortunate to have as our guest one of the best in the whole world. Actually, he does photographs for magazines all over the world, and he's been a colleague since 1972 at North Idaho College, Tim Christie, and at the time of the taping of this program, the semester is about to end, and Tim is going to go off to do other exciting things, including his photography. And Tim, it's been a pleasure working with you here since 1972, and we wish you good luck in all you do. And we're also excited about this program today to look at some more of your work and talk to our viewers about all the ingredients of being a successful photographer. And you do a lot of wildlife and some other photography. And last week was very exciting, and welcome back, and thanks for coming for a second week.
Thank you.
And I'm very pleased to have our regular panelist, Janelle Burke, who's an attorney in the state of Idaho, and next to her is Erna Reinhardt, who's Director of Public Relations at North Idaho College. And Janelle will start today's questioning.
Welcome to the program, Tim. I have always admired your work and think it's very enjoyable. And so my first question is something about how photography, and your photography in particular, has changed over the time that you've been doing it. I'm thinking now that I have a photo that I bought from you a good number of years ago, and so things have probably changed a bit. So how have things changed?
Well, I think without a doubt the biggest change is the digital revolution. And when digital cameras first came out, I truly didn't believe that they would have any place in the professional ranks. And within 5 years, I had my first real professional digital camera. And now every year they're coming out with new cameras that are even more sophisticated and more bells and whistles and even better, etc. There is a law of diminishing returns in terms of the technology, obviously, but who knows what's going to happen. When I first got into photography, everything I did was in slides, transparencies, because that was the medium that the magazines and advertising agencies wanted, and now virtually everything is in digital. And even the slides that I have are now digitized. I scan them, and that's a royal pain in the butt, but because it takes time and energy to be able to do all of that sort of stuff. But I still market some of my work that are slide transparencies, but probably in terms of my marketing at this point in time, it's probably 50-50 in terms of digital versus slides. The equipment has progressively gotten better as far as the lenses and the quality of glass. It also costs more. I remember my very first professional lens was a 300 millimeter 2.8, and if you don't know anything about photography, that won't make any sense to you. It's a 300 millimeter lens, which is the equivalent of a 6-power binocular, and it cost $1,900, and I thought that was a lot of money. I now have, and that was completely manual focus. I have a 300 millimeter 2.8 that is completely autofocus. It's completely autofocus. It's image stabilized. So it's got a little gyroscope in it so that it will stabilize the camera and the image while I'm hand holding it. And it used to be that I'd have, in order to shoot an image with it, I had to shoot it at 1/60th of a second on a tripod. I have handheld this lens at 1/25th of a second with the image stabilized, autofocus, and taken tack sharp images. So, and the cost of that lens is $4,500. So, while the technology keeps getting better, the prices keep getting worse.
You sell more photographs.
Yeah, I have to sell
You
more
have to,
photographs. Yeah, that's right.
One other quick question. Where do you go to find the animals? Do you find as many animals? Do you find them in wildlife preserves? Where do you find the animals now?
Most all of my serious wildlife work is always done in major preserves, national parks, and that's because they are habituated to people and they don't run the minute they see me. And so that's where I concentrate most of my time. That being said, I regularly take photographs here in the Coeur d'Alene area. Many of the people up on Cherry Hill hate the deer. I actually like them because I cruise the roads looking for the deer and the turkeys and what have you. And I've taken cover images on the front yards of people's houses. And, you know, as far as I'm concerned, wherever the animal is, if that's where the image is, and what I take is, it doesn't really matter as long as you don't have the house in. And in some cases, you want the house. For example, I took a photograph of some geese out on the Dyke Road, and there's a great big sign here that says, no dogs, no drinking, no dogs, no alcohol, no dogs. And here's a couple of geese with a whole bunch of droppings there, and they were talking about waterfowl pollution in a community and all of the problems that geese and ducks and all these other sorts of things create in communities, which they create on our campus here at NIC. And this was a cover image, and there's a sign and the whole 9 yards on that. And so it's a matter where I find the photograph.
You know they could be there because they can read, and I knew that weren't forbidden. So.
There is a solution to that problem.
Erna Reinhardt.
Tim, I think you said last week that the favorite kind of photography that you do is big animal photography. So share with us, what is your ideal picture of a large animal?
Ooh, that's a tough question. Actually, my wife Kathleen asked me the other day. She said, "Of all the images that you've ever taken, what's your very favorite photograph?" And I couldn't give her an answer. There are two species that I just absolutely love. One of them is elk, and I said last week I'm an elkaholic. I love elk. There's nothing for me that just gets my heart pumping like a big bull elk. It just does something for me. And the other one is a grizzly bear. Grizzly bears are just, they're the top of the food chain. And if you think that you're on the top of the food chain when you're in grizzly country, you can be humbled very quickly. Because if you and they collide, you're not going to win. It's just as simple as that. And there's something about that, and maybe that kind of visceral nature of that kind of predator-prey sort of thing that I really love about grizzly bears.
In the photographer's world, though, would you say, is there a type of picture that is more coveted, or one that, is it the mama bear with the baby bear? Is that the picture that you'd love, or is it? No,
I like the one of a big bear coming right at you. And the reality is that anything that evokes emotion, that touchy-feeling mama with baby bear, licking baby bear or nursing, that's a very sellable photograph because you react to it emotionally. You have a bear coming at you and his mouth is open and he's popping his jaws, that's going to create some emotion. And emotion sells. That's, if you can get emotion in an image, especially in a two-dimensional image like a photograph, you've got a winner.
Tim, you've had some close calls years ago. We were interviewing you. I remember once, I believe, if I got my memory organized correctly, you had to go up a tree, and I think you lost one of your shoes. Was that a grizzly bear? Or
it was a grizzly bear. I was photographing a white-tailed deer in Glacier National Park in October of 1986, and a sow grizzly bear with cubs came in behind me, and I didn't know that, and the deer ran away, and the cub was scared, and the cub ran, and when it ran, it bawled, and the mother, and I to this day do not know what happened, either the mother was ahead of the cub or behind the cub, and I think what happened, went to investigate what happened to the cub because she heard it bawl. And then I was probably 10 feet up the tree when she hit the tree, and the best metaphor is junkyard dog. I mean, it's, her teeth were popping and she was like that, and she came up the tree after me, and she grabbed me by my foot, and I never, ever wear anything other than high-topped hiking boots when I'm in the field because I have a tendency to roll my ankles over and will sprain my ankles. But when I found the deer, I was in tennis shoes, and my boots were on the other side of the pickup, and the deer was going into the bush, and I literally looked at the boots and went, boots, deer, boots, heck with it. And it was a decision that saved my life because she grabbed me by the heel of the foot, and when she did, she grabbed by that, and I kicked at her. I can't say what I said to her on TV, but anyway, I kicked at her, and she thought she had me, and she just let go. And when she did, she stripped all the branches off the tree, and I went to the top of the tree. And the top of the tree is that thin. I was holding on to the top of the tree.
But if you'd had a boot on, she would have got a hold of you.
She would have had the boot, and she would have pulled me out of the tree.
Yeah.
The same hour of the same day that this happened to me in Glacier National Park, another photographer in Yellowstone National Park had spotted a grizzly bear on a sagebrush flat in the Hayden Valley in Yellowstone National Park. He decided he was going to approach the bear, stalked down a valley going below the deck of the ridge, came up and miscalculated where the bear was and walked in apparently within 40 feet of the bear, and she attacked him, and when they found him 3 days later, she was sitting on his body, and she had consumed 2/3 of his body. Same hour, same day. As I say, for the grace of God go I.
Yeah, but it's really a risky business in some cases.
I have been attacked by moose, cow elk, bull elk, mule deer, whitetail, and dang near pushed off a cliff by a bighorn sheep.
I'll leave photography to you. We're glad you're here.
Yeah, so am I.
At this point, we want to show some more wonderful works of yours, and so if they'll put it up, we'll go with the first photograph. What a great one.
Actually, one of the things that I truly believe is that we are surrounded by beauty, and
Yes.
it's a matter of being able to see it and then being able to capture it. And this is just a little bee working on a flower in a friend's garden. Actually,
Oh, there it is, the bee right there. Yeah,
right there.
Isn't that incredibly beautiful? Again, it's your instincts of what to get.
Photography is all about the placement of objects and those kinds of things. I was out walking one afternoon and this spring, and there's these glacier lilies, and I looked down and here's a deer antler laying there, and I went, that's nice. And so I got up the next morning, literally, and went down there, and the wind was blowing, and you may not be able to see it very well, but on the right-hand side, the glacier lilies are moving, and the one on the foreground there, the lilies are moving as well. And I just talked about trying to shoot somewhat of a mood image there of a still life, if you will.
And our next one here.
This is taken down on our beach. Every spring the goslings come out, and the Canadian honkers will nest near the beach, and then they always bring the goslings down, and I take my nature photography class down to take some pictures of some wildlife, and they get a sense of how they don't cooperate like they want them to.
Yes. And then this is a really remarkable one also.
I call this the enforcer. This is a no camping zone, and you can see the little sign that says no camping, and here's this bull moose that's raking his velvet off of his antlers on the sign. Actually, right now the Park Service, National Park Service, is considering that to be used in one of their brochures on camping.
And now I believe this is about hunting.
Right. I do a lot of hunting, and interestingly, this is a former student of ours at North Idaho College who was in my nature photography class, and his name is Michael Leach. And he was in my the first night of my nature photography class. I tell people that one of the reasons that I am a very successful nature photographer is because I'm a hunter. And he was born and raised in a family that is not very, they don't think hunting is a very good idea. And so immediately we were at cross odds with one another, and he is not very shy about sharing his opinion, and neither am I. And we had long conversations about the concept of hunting and whatever. And interestingly, Mike now works for the National Park Service, and he is going hunting. And this was him this spring. I took him out, and he shot some targets, and he's examining the target there, and I'm actually going to do a magazine article on him about his evolution of becoming the anti-hunter turned hunter.
And then here's around the fire, I believe.
Yep. Actually, this is a dear friend of mine and my son sitting around a campfire. And last week we talked about the kind of the ambiance of the hunting experience, the outdoor experience. And this is in an elk camp up in the Coeur d'Alenes. And lots of times what I do is in the evenings after we've been hunting, I will photograph and do things like that so that I have some images to go with that. And this is in an elk hunting camp down in Wyoming that I was blessed to be able to hunt in a couple of years ago. And I love this photograph because you've got two people talking together, and then on the front porch there's an elk rack. So it immediately says elk hunting camp, but there's a certain sense of camaraderie between the two men talking. That photograph's been published 4 or 5 times already now.
And our last one for today.
This is one of those moments that really, interestingly enough, was only possible by digital photography. And this is what digital is able to do, is that in the old days when you used film, you had to, if the light wasn't particularly good, you had to use high-speed film, like 400 ISO film. With digital, all you do is just turn up the ISO rating. And it was a real foggy morning in Yellowstone National Park, and this bull had come down to the edge of the water to drink, and all these other people were standing there with film cameras, and I was just shooting like crazy, and everybody's going, "What are you shooting?" And I'm going, "Can't you see this?" And I shot a whole bunch of images, and this has been a very successful image for me at this point in time. It's got that wonderful kind of ethereal mood to it, and it's, you know, kind of mystic. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't have done it without a digital camera.
Janelle Berg.
We've looked at a lot of beautiful photographs. Let's talk a little bit about seasons and which seasons you prefer, or if you like them all, or what seasons do you think are best for photography?
Without a doubt, fall. Fall. I mean, I've always said, if I could have the fall off, I'd teach until I'm 90. Because the reality is, fall is where everything is at, as far as I'm concerned. It's the colors are the most magnificent. Most of your big game animals are in the mating season. That's when they're concentrated together. You've got all kinds of spectacular colors. It's hunting season. I can do all of that kind of thing as far as hunting season. Without a doubt, spring is my next favorite. Birds, mating plumage of birds, and you've got all kinds of activity with respect to the budding of trees and all of the beautiful colors. Summer is my least favorite. It's hot. You have to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning to get the first 2 hours of light, and you have to stay up until 9:30 at night, and, you know, and I mean, it makes for very long days. Winter, I really enjoy. I enjoy it less as I grow older than I used to when I was a kid. I was born and raised in Montana, and it was not uncommon at all to have 40 below zero weather, and I can remember they wouldn't close school for anything in Montana. I remember going to school at 50 below zero, and we would go out and play all day, you know, on Saturday and Sunday in 30, 40 below zero and never think anything about it. Now when it gets to 20 below zero, I go, gee, it's cold. But the light is oftentimes beautiful. One of the things that I don't like about Coeur d'Alene and the Coeur d'Alene area is that the gray winters. They're real gray, long, protracted, not much sunshine. And one of the things that I'm really looking forward to doing is I'm going to spend some time someplace other than Coeur d'Alene where the sun shines. Not necessarily warm. I'm not an Arizona guy. I'm going to probably go to Colorado and or New Mexico, Bosque del Apache in New Mexico, where the birds concentrate. I'm going to spend some time there.
Also, our good friend Scott Reed goes to the Platte River in Wyoming and watches the the birds come in, and that's
Sandhill cranes.
that's just
Right,
incredible.
in the
scene.
spring.
Have
In
you
the
done
spring.
that too?
No, I haven't done that. That's the there's a plus and a minus as far as teaching is concerned, because the plus is that you have a consistent job and you have a consistent paycheck and you have all those other sorts of things. The world of a photographer is oftentimes is very hit or miss. I mean, you may have 2 or 3 months where you may bring in $15,000, $20,000, and then you may have 2 months where you may bring in $1,000. So, and I know photographers who sleep in the back of their pickup and eat peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. They're committed to this, but they didn't have the blessing of that full-time job or whatever. And I didn't want to live in the back of my pickup and eat peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. But it also meant that I can't go spend 2 weeks on the Platte River in the spring. That's going to be rectified.
Scott Reed will be happy to hear that. Erna Reinhardt.
Tim, last week you mentioned that you had approximately 500 clients. So walk us through the selling process, how you go about as a professional photographer, either pitching your photos to publishers, or is the practice that they come to you with their requests, or is it a little bit of both?
Where I am now versus where I was to begin with is a very different thing. Now when my photographs are published, most of the time I try to get them to publish the photo credit as my website. Okay, so somebody's looking through a magazine, they see a photograph, they go, oh, and it says www.timchristiephotography.photo.com. And so they will go to my website, they will contact me. So that's a very helpful kind of thing. I'm at the point now that probably 50% of the contacts that I get are contacts where people contact me. The other 50% are probably people that I contact, but I'm always on the lookout. I never go to a new city where I don't go to a bookstore, look at the magazine racks, look at the books, look at the calendars, and I'm always finding new markets. So I'm always on the lookout. But, lots of times people have no idea who Tim Christie is, even though I've been doing this for 30 years. And so I have promotional pieces that I have put together, and I will find out who the publisher is and or call them on the phone. I'm not very bashful. And I'll call them on the phone and say, I'm a photographer. I've got 120,000 slides. I've got another 30 to 40,000 digital images. I'm going to send you a sample. If you want to look at my work, look at my website, etc. And lots of times that opens the door. But it doesn't mean that just because the door is open that I don't have to provide good service and good photography. And the reality is what I sell are images. And when I send images into a client, I want to make sure that I call it eye candy. I want them to look at it and go, wow, this is incredible. There are cliche shots, that everybody's got elk photographs. I like to think that I have elk photographs that nobody else has. And there are other photographers who have got better elk shots than I do. And you are competing with a relatively large and interestingly getting bigger group of people, because one of the things that technology has provided is that it makes it easy to take photographs. Anybody with a camera, anybody with a computer can take pretty incredible photographs. We've taken a lot of the mystique out of it. We've got autofocus cameras. We have cameras that have such great light sensors that it's really hard to screw up a photograph as far as lighting is concerned. But lots of people don't understand the nuances of light, and that's when last week when we talked about light. It's like the last photograph of the bull on the edge of the river. There were 5 photographers standing there looking at it. And I'm going, why in the heck aren't you photographing it? And I'm shooting as fast as I can. My students the other day, with the geese when they got on the log, one student was taking the picture, and I'm going, I'm shooting, my motor drive is burning up, and I'm going, why aren't we shooting this, guys? But I mean, it's a matter of being able to see those things, and I think that's what the experience has given me. People know me by reputation now, but it's amazing how quickly your reputation is meaningless. I have a very good friend of mine who worked for a magazine for 40 years. they got a new photo editor. Okay, and that happens all the time. I mean, the average length of a photo editor in most of the publications that I work with is 2 years.
So you're constantly
You're,
reintroducing yourself.
you're
and-
reintroducing yourself.
Yeah. Wow.
That's a good thing and a bad thing. Okay, the bad thing is like my friend who worked for this magazine for 30 years called him up and said, "Hi, I'm Bill McRae." You know Bill.
Oh, yes.
I'm Bill McRae, and the editor goes, "Who are you?"
He's incredible. Bill McRae.
Yeah, and he'd worked for him for 30 years.
Right.
And like Bill said, you want to talk about humbling. The other good thing, the flip side of that is sometimes editors have seen your photographs for so many years. Calendars, for example, they have the same photo editor for 3 or 4 or 5 years, and you send them the same photographs over and over and over again. Because I mean, for example, I have a golden retriever file. We own golden retrievers, so I photograph golden retrievers, and I've been very successful in terms of submitting them as far as calendars is concerned. One calendar company has had the same editor for the last 7 years. She's seen every photograph in my file. Okay, so I continually shoot new photographs, but she gets tired of looking at old Tim Christie golden retriever photo that she didn't select 5 years ago. Why? You get a new photo editor?
New opportunity.
They've never seen my golden retriever file.
That's a good tip for somebody that's
Yeah.
starting out, is if they don't have success right off the bat,
Yeah.
keep trying.
On that note, which bring the program to conclusion, I want to say to Tim Christie again, it's been wonderful having you this 2 weeks. What a professional photographer you are, and good luck in your work, and may you have many wonderful years of doing that. Ladies and gentlemen, the next 2 weeks we will be doing jazz music, which will end the 35th year of our program, but our 2 panelists will not be with me on those programs, and I wanted to say to them today that the 35th year has been wonderful with you, and we thank you for being so loyal and committed and dedicated and all your good questions. That it's remarkable to think that this has been going for 35 years, and Janelle's been here, I think it's about 31 or 32 of that, and our newcomer is been wonderful, and you've been with us about 3 years now, I believe. And so we want to, for our public, say thank you for this year. It's been really, really productive. We've had a lot of exciting shows like these today and last week with Tim Christie. And ladies and gentlemen, our guest does have a website, and if they'll put that back up, you can get in touch with Tim Christie if you like, or of course you can always contact him through us. And if you would like to see his works, or if you would like to maybe purchase a work, I know Tim Christie would be happy to. And there it is up there again. It's www, and that is timchristiephoto.com. And
They're all for sale.
they're all for sale. And he is just incredibly gifted. Ladies and gentlemen, again, be with us next week, please, when we do our wonderful jazz music. I think you'll enjoy that very much. Until then, please have a good week. I am Tony Stewart.
Recorded on the campus of North Idaho College, Public Forum is the longest-running in-house college production on PBS. Each episode is pre-recorded live and is an educational outreach from North Idaho College. Please join us at this same time next week for another edition of Public Forum on this public television station.